Everybody's pissing and moaning. We had a different coach come up and give a motivational speech in the afternoon each day. He was our running backs coach at the time by the name of Derek Foster. Coach Foster came up there, toughness and pushing through. He got real razzed up as his speech progressed. We had a video coordinator named Rocky. He finishes his speech and he goes, "Hit it, Rock!" And Set It Off by Boosie Badass played. As a young white man, it was my first time hearing that song, Set It Off. Yeah, we finna set it off. You heard me? I'm finna put you in the trash bag. Tired of all these knowing me right now, for real. You wanna talk shit? You wanna run your mouth? You want some gangster strut your mother in the house? We'll set this jaw. Yeah. And that was my first time hearing Set It Off. At Samford University, it was the third or fourth week of camp. We were about where teams are right now. Right before the season, everybody's pissing and moaning. We had a different coach.
All right, I just couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't. And today, you guys know what we're going to talk about. You guys have a damn good idea of what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a short episode, probably about 20 minutes. And it's going to be all about Joe Burrow and my Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know much about anything, but I feel like if we know something around here, it's about Joe Burrow. It's about the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll give our take on it. It's very concerning. It's one of the most concerning pressers I've ever seen as a sports fan. But there's also a bit of hope littered into all of this. Everybody wants to say, oh, he wants out of Cincinnati. He wants to request a trade, or even worse, he wants to retire. I don't think that's the case. Now, will I be a bit biased in all of this? Absolutely. I've followed the Bengals. Look, I showed you guys yesterday. I've followed the Bengals for a long time. You guys can't see it, but that says 2006 on it. If the Brown and Blackburn family drive Joe Burrow out of Cincinnati, I'm done. And hundreds of thousands of other Bengals fans will be done. It's too much. There's too much dysfunction. We saw Trey Hendrickson speak to the media around the time his psyche was being broken by this decrepit, dysfunctional Bengals organization. And now you watch Joe Burrow's press conference yesterday, and he too looks and sounds broken. And this is what happens when you are surrounded by penny-pinching, fear-based thinkers like Bengals ownership. You take a look at, I wish I had a picture of Katie Blackburn to put on the screen. Google Katie Blackburn. Stay in a live stream, but if you can find a way to stay in and Google Katie Blackburn, go ahead and do that. Anybody from Central Kentucky, anybody from that general area from Central Kentucky up north to Cincinnati knows the type. The toxic boomers, they look a certain way, they smell a certain way, and they think a certain way. And anything they think is what is the reality that's projected onto everybody else. My ideas have to reign supreme. That's the mentality of the Blackburns and the Browns. And it gets exhausting being around personalities like that on a day-to-day basis. It's draining. Trey Hendrickson was the leading indicator. Now, Trey, I've got choice words about him. He quit on this team. He quit on this organization. And I've never put on the stripes. I've never worked in that building. I know that I interviewed with the Cincinnati Bengals for a ticket sales role, and I didn't get it. because I was probably too free of a thinker, probably too open-minded, probably a bit too crass and green for these baby boomers, the most toxic generation that's ever lived on planet Earth. But Joe Burrow seems at his wit's end, and I don't blame him. We've spent week after week, month after month, year after year being let down by this organization that refuses to hire a GM. I think that this Joe Burrow press conference is a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Joe Burrow is the most powerful man in the history of the Cincinnati Bengals ownership. Head coach, GM, owner, player, anybody. Joe is by far the most powerful person in the history of this organization. Joe has taken, seemingly on his own back, this organization to heights that us fans never dreamed of. Ask any Bengals fan whether they thought we would ever even sniff a Super Bowl. Think about saying that too, by the way. We're a professional football team. The goal is to obviously win a championship. Not for some organizations. For some organizations whose colors are orange and black, the goal is revenue. And as long as that end of the year bottom line is headed in a decent direction, we don't care about anything else. That's a problem for guys like Joe Burrow. That's an issue. And so I see this press conference as a positive thing, because if anybody is going to incite positive change in such a dysfunctional organization, sports or not sports, maybe the fact that it's a pro football team and there's special parameters around being a pro football team is part of what makes this Bengals organization so toxic, to the point that it radiates outward to places like Phoenix, Arizona, where I get cancer watching this team play every week. And I'm sure Joe feels the same as a competitor. He does his job. He had a big slip-up against Buffalo, a couple of slip-ups. Look, you get a batted ball on that second pick. That's not really, it's just a good play by the defensive lineman. And then on the pick six that changed everything on Sunday, the ball seemed to come out of Joe's hand kind of funny. Snowy game, this, that, and the other. But people are making this, especially on ESPN. ESPN loves, absolutely loves to shite on the Bengals any chance they get. I don't know. We talked about this before. The media, for some reason, loves to jump down the Bengals' throat, and it's perfectly warranted in most cases. On days like today, I think a lot of the takes being made by Stephen A., by Dan Orlovsky, are lazy. They want to talk about Andrew Luck. They want to compare Joe to Andrew Luck. I think Andrew Luck played in 86 games in his career and was sacked 174 times. And Joe's only played in 73 games and been sacked 200-plus times. They love to pull that graphic up on the screen. They love it because they want to talk about how the offensive line hasn't been supplemented by the organization. The defense has failed the team, and that's perfectly clear. That is a fair and non-lazy take. But Joe said it himself last week, or maybe early this week. The offensive line in front of him is the best he's had in his time in Cincinnati. The offensive line has not been a problem really since week 5. And ironically, week 6, the Logan Wilson stuff starts. You lose your leader on the defense, and the defense has been the problem dating back to week 6. It's funny how dysfunctional organizations find a way, much like my golf game. When they're hitting fairways, they're messing up on the irons. When they're missing the fairway, they find a way to get it up on the green. And then you three-putt it or something. That's my golf game. My golf game reminds me a lot of the Cincinnati Bengals. When the defense gets stops, the offense comes up short. When the offense is playing ball, the defense can't stop what's a southern euphemism I could use? You get the point. So all I think this was for Joe was sending a message without sending a message. If you are the Cincinnati Bengals front office, even with the stubbornness that comes with being a product of nepotism, even with this baby boomer mindset that nobody's ideas are valid except mine, even with all of this, these statements made by Joe in yesterday's press conference have to be at the forefront of the Bengals front office attention. We know that it's at the forefront of many other teams' attention this morning. And there's been plenty of rumors, even specific teams with a quarterback need, rumored to be shuffling around, making calls, and seeing if there's a way that they can get Joe Burrow's services. I think the speculation about Joe retiring is absolutely null and void. The guy loves football. The guy's a competitor. And it's true he's made enough money to last him 3 lifetimes, 100 lifetimes. So you could justify that stance in saying, well, he just might retire. And I could see a world where the Bengals, who have been so terrible to players in the past, would refuse to trade him. I heard something about a no-trade clause. I'm not familiar down to the last comma on Joe's contract, but I heard something about a no-trade clause. I don't know what that is. I should, but I don't. And then you had Jamar speaking to the media today saying, Joe's fine. He's happy. He loves his teammates. I think Joe is such a competitor that losing in the fashion the Bengals have managed to lose the last 2 years, 3 years, is weighing on him so heavily. Because it's very clear it's a culture of losing in this building that comes from the top. The top is to be blamed. And so if you're the most powerful person in franchise history, what do? Well, you send messages in press conferences like this. And if he's sending messages in press conferences like this, then it's very clear that he has darkened the doorstep of the Browns and Blackbirds many times, making inquiries, I'd imagine, on all falling on deaf ears, as it normally goes down when you try to handle things with Cincinnati and Central Kentucky baby boomers. I know this because I was raised by them. A little bit of chip on my shoulder there. I apologize. But I'm familiar with dealing with these kind of people, man. And so what's obvious to me is if Joe felt like he had to go into this press conference and send a message like this, he's gone into their office numerous times making inquiries that fell on deaf ears. So now he feels like he's got to go to the media to send a message. Let's elevate this thing a little bit. You guys don't want to hire a GM? I'm going to make cryptic messages in a press conference that creates headlines around the league. That's what we're going to do. You guys don't want to fire Zach Taylor? And look, I've heard reports that Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor have an incredible relationship and that Joe would never throw Zach under the bus. We got to make a change at head coach. But I'm worried as a fan. I'm worried that if and when Cincinnati fires Zach Taylor, the guy that they replace him with is going to be even worse. And it's just going to be that traditional, when the Bengals make a move, they try to force something. God, my frustrations are almost inexplicable. I almost feel tongue-tied on this podcast. This is my time to let it rip on the Bengals, and I get tongue-tied because I get so puckered up and pissed about how these people run things. It reminds me of a lot of family, friends, and acquaintances that I knew growing up. Just dysfunctional people that are so convinced that they're right and that they do things right, and yet they refuse to hear anybody else, anything else, other than their own ideas. That's how this Bengals organization is run. And I don't have to know these people to know that. I can look at them and smell it. And we've talked about boycotting the team before on the show. We've talked about forcing ownership to sell a team, but that's not going to happen. They are the problem. And instead of listening to people's suggestions, you have winners like Joe Burrow in your building that I'm sure are coming to their office to plead and beg, please be normal. Please run this organization like every other organization runs. Please, you're not that special. We know that your grandpa or your great-grandpa or whatever the hell basically was a founding father of this game. You can't rest on his laurels anymore. It's over. This is your life, not your grandfather's life. Please, for the love of God, get a sense of urgency. Be normal. Try meditation or some shit to get over your issue with lack of awareness or ego or whatever the hell the problem is with Bengals ownership. But they're not going to sell the team. They are the problem. Unfortunately, you cannot fire owners, and we've talked about the dark side of the sports business before. There's no accountability for dysfunctional ownership. There's zero accountability. The accountability has to fall on everybody else in the organization. That's why they hired Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is a great puppet. He's a great whipping boy. He's not an alpha male. And he's perfectly fine with doing whatever Miss Katie Blackburn tells him to say, taking the fall on things. And I will say, Zach Taylor deserves some blame for all of this. He absolutely does. It's reported that he has say in personnel decisions, and the personnel department is the number one department in the Bengals organization that has come up short other than ownership. But guess who's hired in the personnel department? Who hires people in the personnel department? Probably ownership. Probably Duke, who's basically part of ownership. So my optimistic outlook on this Joe Burrow press conference was very bleak, very contemplative. Personal gains in the chat. The Bengals win division. I sure hope so, man. It's looking bleak. I sure hope so. Look, I'm supposed to be down in South Florida for Christmas, and the Bengals play the Dolphins on December 21st. I always make it a tradition to go down to the Dolphins game when I'm down there for Christmas, regardless of who's playing there. Obviously, Cincinnati's playing there on December 21st, and I don't think I'm going to go. This is the first Dolphins Christmas game in 3 or 4 years that I think I'm choosing to not go to when it's my Bengals coming to town. It's just sad, man, with the guys we've got, the ability these guys have, for me to not even be excited. There's been so many peaks and valleys this season. It's just indicative. Everything trickles down from ownership. Everything. And I'd hate to be them right now, man. I'd love to own a team, but I'd hate to be them right now. Because they're going to either have to let the most powerful player in their organization go and lose hundreds of thousands of fans, because Carson Palmer went through this same thing trying to combat the dysfunction. There's no telling, or there's no doubt, that Joe Burrow is a more powerful figure in Bengals lore already than Carson Palmer was. And Carson Palmer is a great player for us. If there's any time where the Bengals change and get out of their own way, it's now. And Joe Burrow has sent the message to kickstart that process. And two things are going to happen. One of two things will happen. Either the Bengals will finally get head out of ass and hire a GM or fire Zach or whatever the hell Joe wants him to do. I'd be shocked if Bengals ownership didn't call Joe into their office today, if that hasn't already happened, and just looked across the desk and said, hey, what do you want? And if they're smart, and I don't have much faith in them being smart, by the way, if they're smart, they will give Joe what he wants. Now, to play devil's advocate, Joe Burrow went on First Take during Super Bowl week last year. And they asked him, what do you want out of this organization? What do you want for this season? And he said, well, I want to re-sign Jamar, I want to re-sign T, and I want to re-sign Trey. And the Bengals did all three of those. Joe didn't really say anything about the O-line. He didn't really say anything about the defense, and I don't think the O-line's been a problem the last, really since week 5. I think the O-line's played pretty well. Defense has been absolutely terrible. And that started with Logan Wilson in week 6 when they benched him in Green Bay in favor of Barrett Carter, who's been absolutely terrible. And look, you got to give a little patience to rooks. I get it. But when you are throwing 2 rookies in at 2 of the most important positions on the football field defensively, the message is this is the window, right? We want to win now, right? Probably not the smartest thing to do to have 2 rooks getting thrown to the wolves in the nucleus of your defense. Think how many times against Buffalo on Sunday the second level was nowhere to be found. Think about that 40-yard Josh Allen run. Nowhere to be found. 3rd and 15, when you somehow at the end of the game still had a chance to go and win the game. 3rd and 15, Josh Allen pulls the ball, runs it 18 yards. The second level is nowhere to be found. So the actions don't really line up with the words. We have to win now. The window is now. Okay, let's bench the only real leader on our defense, because Trey's not a leader. Trey Hendrickson quit on this team. We'll never see him in stripes again. Waste of $30 million. A thief, as some of my college coaches would call him. You're a thief. You're stealing money. Trey Hendricks is not a leader, and he hasn't been out there, and I think that proves that he's not a leader, because he could be. But you let the only other leader on your defense go. You let him go. And I'm not saying Logan Wilson's the most talented guy. I'm not saying he was playing incredibly. But I am saying in the NFL, you get an edge as a unit when you have a guy that's been there, done that before. And say what you want about Logan Wilson. He had been there and done that, at least with that team. So you want to win now, but we're just going to try out these 2 rookies at 2 of the most important positions on the field, middle linebacker. And they have played terribly. They've been the glaring issue on this defensive unit. Make it make sense. And I think that's where Joe's coming from. Let's go. Let's see the chat here. I see a nice long message here. I used to go to high school with this guy, and he got suspended for beating the cheeks of the Downey kid junior year. Now he makes YouTube shorts. I'm so glad your suspension didn't stop your... Okay. That is from Seitan IC Space. Oh my goodness, that's funny. I didn't know I did that. Let's read a tweet from Bengals legend, former right tackle Willie Anderson. I remember talking to the team through the media as a player. The more somber you act, the more it hits home. I didn't have the power of the quarterback position. Players do this to lead. I know that may seem weird for some, but team officials, especially nowadays, listen to the messages sent this way. I'm just hoping my guy keeps the fire going and can continue to love this game. I know he will. These guys have their youth and health. Enjoy every last moment. No one has a time machine once it's over. It's gone. Hooday. I've heard other angles, and I do have to run in a second here, guys. I apologize. This is the only time of the day today that I could fit this show in. But we say what you want about us, man. We show up day in and day out, and that's what we're doing. I've heard other angles on this Joe Burrow press conference saying you make $50 million a year to play a kid's game. Tighten the frig up. Quit crying. Quit being a baby back bitch. And I've seen great NFL players commenting on the NFL legends like Willie McGinnis commenting on these videos with laughing emojis, crying emojis, in agreement, basically. And look, Joe Burrow is my sweet prince. Joe Burrow has done things for me as a sports fan that I, even at this moment, never fathomed seeing as a Bengals fan. The excitement, the euphoria. I'm talking about 2021. So I can't muster the will to say, oh, be a man. You're making $50 million a year. You're soft. This generation's soft. I understand those takes. I really do. But everybody's journey is everybody's journey. And you might be able to look from afar at Joe and say, well, you're making $50 million a year making a kid's game. It's hard for me to have sympathy. I understand that take. I don't agree with it. Because you look in that seat, you look at Joe in his position as a competitor, as a guy that clearly hasn't gotten the support from his organization that he deserves. It's not about money. It's not about the fact that it's a kid's game. The guy wants to win, and it ails him to not win. And the nature of the people that run this organization is to lose. They are losers. The owners of the Bengals are losers. They are a loser family. They rest on the laurels of the achievements of their ascendants. They don't feel as if they need to contribute anything to the world. They can just fall back on the achievements of their ascendants. Those are toxic people to deal with. It's a something for nothing mentality. That's very toxic. I've had people like that in my life before. It's very draining to be around those types of people that feel like they're owed everything or entitled to everything while doing nothing. That is Bengals ownership. We're going to rest on the laurels of our grandfather who was part of creating this game. I don't need to achieve anything in my life. My grandfather's already done everything. It's a sorry-ass attitude, and it's toxic, and it weighs on the people around you who are actually creators, who are actually constructive people, who are actually leaders, who actually are competitors and want to win. And that is the conflict you're seeing play out right now between Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals organization. I will always side with Joe. because the guy's a winner. If Joe leaves and goes to play for another team, not only will the Bengals lose hundreds of thousands of fans, and that's on the low end. I'm being conservative with that. It could be the death of this entire organization, which might be a justice to the world. I don't know at this point. I don't know how many folks have gotten literal cancer from following this team. I've gotten close. I know my blood pressure's been affected. It will be a gut punch to this franchise if Joe requests a trade or retires early because of the dysfunction. It will be a death punch, mark my words. And if he goes somewhere else and plays somewhere else, I am now a fan of that team. I've never been a guy to follow players with my fanhood. I always thought that was very fickle. But this Cincinnati Bengals team is a special case, and not special in the way you'd want it to be. These folks have a choice to make. They can either drop their toxic habits, their toxic behaviors, their toxic personalities, and listen to one of the greatest competitors we've ever seen in this game. Or they can do what I think they're going to do and stay in their own way, continue to be stuck in their ways, continue to be deluded by the achievements of family members of theirs that died long ago, and let one of the most legendary players we've ever seen in football go somewhere else. The Bengals have a choice to make. Just to confirm, Joe Burrow, this was on December 10th from Joe Danneman, who covers Cincinnati Bengals. He says, Joe Burrow says this is the best offensive line he's played with in his time in Cincinnati. So stop making these lazy takes comparing Joe Burrow to Andrew Luck. Stop making these lazy takes, ESPN, about, well, they haven't put an offensive line around him to support him. Joe just said that he's got the best offensive line in front of him right now he's ever had in his time in Cincinnati. And the standards for that might be low. I will concede that. But if you hear people in the media saying offensive line, Joe Burrow gets hit too much, this and that, just remember, think back to this moment. It's a lazy take. Let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the defense. The old saying goes, and I'll leave you guys with this. I've gone way over my time already. I'm going to be late as hell. I'll leave you guys with this. Defense wins championships. What does offense do? Sells tickets. Where have the Bengals chosen to build their roster? Offense. And if we stick to the old adage that offense sells tickets, defense wins championships, we are clearly more interested in profits, in the bottom line financially, as opposed to winning. If we just worried about doing the right things, which is winning, then the ticket sales will take care of itself. But this is a prime symptom of people who are asleep, people who are sleepwalking through life, is that you don't have your fucking priorities straight. So we're just going to worry about the financials. We don't really care what's going on the football field, even though that's the right thing to do. Like, that would be hard. I would have to think and add value and be creative. No. Let's just worry about the money. Let's just worry about selling jerseys. Let's just worry about putting on a show every week, even though we lose, find a way to lose every game. No. Winning would be too hard. We'd have to think. We'd have to be creative. We'd have to get outside of the box. I can't do that. I thought my grandfather was, all his achievements were supposed to handle everything in my life. You better be careful, Bengals. You better be careful. But what do I know? Hey, guys, I got to go, man. I apologize. It's been a short episode, but just had to come on and rant about this, guys. It's the most dysfunctional organization in the history of sports. Organized sports, college, pro, high school, middle school. And I'm in the jar about it. Hopefully this Joe Burrow press conference inspires positive change for the first time in the history of the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll believe it when I see it. We'll continue to cover this. We'll continue to keep you guys updated. We're live Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Normally, today I had appointments, so early episode. Appreciate everyone that popped in. And I'll never ask you for anything. You know what I'm about to ask you to do. Hit the subscribe button for me. We haven't gotten any subs in the last couple days. It's been itching at me. So somebody, I know somebody that's watching right now isn't subbed. Algorithm wouldn't have brought you here if you didn't like football. And if you like football, you're going to love our channel. We post stuff daily. We do shows daily. And we're the fastest growing show in all of the land right now. Fastest growing football show. So hit that subscribe button for me. Would you please? Thank you so much. Bare minimum, hit the like, double tap the screen or whatever. And if you don't do either, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Okay? So we'll start this again. For some reason, it keeps cutting. I have an appointment to be at in 12 minutes. But I love you guys. I'm here. So subscribe to the channel. We're here every day. Okay? And with that, I'll leave you guys. Thank you.